Welcome to the Cameron-A-Rama, and the fourth film in the career of James Cameron, The Abyss. One of the, I guess the first kind of problematic one that he turned out. This is,
What does that mean? What are you talking about?
well, just in that it had issues and diffidifficulties. I don't mean it, it said something sexist or abused somebody. Well, I guess he did abuse people during it, but
boy, did he ever. We'll get into that.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. No, but I think he just means coming off of Terminator and Aliens.
Yes.
This is a step down in quality. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
I really like this movie, but I do think that's fair to say. Probably.
Well, the bar is high, is the thing.
Yeah.
Terminator and Aliens is rare air, and The Abyss, God love it. It can't quite get there.
It's a thicker, more difficult, breathable liquid rather than that rarefied air.
Yeah.
But by the way, we are Framework. I am Al Schwartz. That's John Bernard, my host, and our returning guest, David Sarnecki. David, identify yourself by voice.
Hey, everybody, this is me. How you doing?
All right. So,
how you doing? Keep it moving.
You're an Abyss fan, huh?
I'm a James Cameron fan. All right. As far as I'm concerned, the man has never done wrong, including Avatar.
Not even when he almost drowned Ed Harris.
You know,
his performance is worth it.
That is the one thing I'll say. The two leads who arguably suffered the most and went through the most horrible things. It does show up on screen. I can't say that it doesn't, and their performances are absolutely wonderful in my opinion. So, well, maybe the light torture was worth it? Question mark.
Always the question with Cameron. Yes.
Yeah. Well, with lots of these movies, with Apocalypse Now, or what any movie made between like 1969 and 1980 that we still talk about, generally there was something that we would consider abuse and crimes happening on those sets, and in a lot of the cases it is a thorny issue of I don't know though, that performance is really good. I don't know if I want to see the version of The Shining where Shelley Duvall was happy the whole time. Right. But in this case, this is one where I'm like, this is a good movie. It's fine, but I don't think it's good enough or memorable enough to justify much of anything in terms of those abusive shenanigans.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, the crew probably has opinions on this that are the most valid. The people who actually worked on The Abyss with and had to decompress 2 days at the end of every shoot, getting yelled at and shitting themselves in their diving suits and
their hair turning green from the chlorine.
Yes, and working 70 hours underwater a week, and
that blew my mind. Literally days into the shoot. We should probably jump into the movie, but
it's okay.
I do want to mention this just really quickly.
Part of the legacy.
Days into the shoot, they were having an algae problem in the tank just because it's unfiltered water that's just sitting there, and all of a sudden you can't see anything in the tank, so they had to dump chlorine into this thing, and the crews literally their hair was turning like bleaching from spending too long in the tank, and all the hair on their arms was being burned off from chlorine burns. It just sounds horrible. That was a couple days into the shoot.
This is a 6-month shoot. One of the most contentious, famously unpleasant shoots in Hollywood history, really. I from what I understand, there's an excellent documentary, a PR documentary on the original DVD of this. I could not find it online anymore, but
I found it. Yeah. It's very difficult to find. I can share the link with anybody who wants it, but
I might take that from you after. It's pretty great.
It's arguably as good as the movie, maybe even better if you're more interested in the behind the scenes.
And it's not even this is a documentary about how everything went fucking awful on this movie. This is the story of the abuse that took place on the set of The Abyss, which they nicknamed it The Abuse. That's very funny. But even in this PR form, this documentary is just oh my God, this looks terrible. This looks absolutely horrible. And people are noticeably furious at Cameron throughout it.
Oh yeah. I mean the unofficial quote that the crew came up with behind the scenes was "Life's a abyss and then you dive," something like that.
Yep. It's incredible that Cameron then turned around and not even 10 years later did another biggest shoot ever, all in a giant water tank.
He
was not disabused from this.
He must have been mad at this movie because he went and he did it again. He said, I'm conquering this.
Yeah, I'm not accepting defeat in the form of, I mean, this movie made money, right? Like
it did okay. Certainly a bit of a disappointment, and it was one of those things kind of like where the press enjoyed like talking about the disaster of it enough that it had a bit of a reputation. I don't think it helped his career exactly, but he got to make Terminator 2 right after, so not too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that the Terminator opened that door for him, so this wasn't bad enough. This wasn't a Heaven's Gate style disaster by any means. It just, it wasn't the end product. I don't think was like incredible enough to overcome all that behind the scenes drama in terms of the narrative, and
it wasn't perceived that way. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and now we've been talking for 5 minutes about that right off the bat without even touching what this movie is or what it's about or what happens.
Yeah. I mean, and there's more to that. There's plenty of horror stories from the making of. Like, he was going through a divorce with the producer of the film while they shot this at the same time.
Was he really? I didn't even know that.
Gail Ann Hurd, who the Lindsay character is explicitly based on. So
clearly,
yeah. So that's fun. But yeah, like, okay, so what this movie is, it's an underwater adventure movie with aliens and action scenes and scientists and Michael Crichton type stuff and Ed Harris and
Michael Biehn.
And Michael Biehn. It's this is what you make when we've made the Terminator and Aliens, and everyone thinks you're an absolute genius and you get to write whatever the hell you want and find a way to shoot whatever the hell you want. And you're James Cameron, and you're obsessed with underwater things, and
it's a total passion project.
Yeah,
exactly what I was going to say. It's when you are that genius, but also you're kind of a lunatic who just wants to live at the bottom of the sea.
Right.
And it's really like it's striking that how much of his career has been spent in these giant water tanks, and to the point like now it took him 10 or 12 years to make a sequel to the biggest movie ever made. Because I guess he just wanted to figure out a way to do it all in the water, make it.
Yeah, he can't get away from the water, can he? He loves it.
And not to mention all the diving documentaries about what it would be like if there were aliens underwater, or what it would be like to go look at the Titanic. Like that is sort of where Titanic came from. It was his just fascination with going underwater and looking at the shipwreck of it. This is his thing. I mean, in many ways, this is the most James Cameron film. This is all his obsessions and fascinations and everything he wants a movie to be. Difficult, envelope pushing, all of it. Yeah.
If we were to make the James Cameron bingo card at the end of this, I think this is the movie that will probably tick the most boxes. Like it feels like
it'd be a blackout. Yeah.
It's got the DNA of like, it seems like every other movie, give or take Terminator, maybe in it. Like that. Between this and Aliens, they share the sort of like blue collar professionals in this, enclosed industrial environment, surrounded by this very hostile, deep sea / outer space environment that you can't survive in. And
this fetishization of the sort of military grade robots and mechanical objects.
Yes. And you got with True Lies, you've got the estranged bickering couple that is going to come together.
And Piranha 2, of course. Yes.
Piranha 2 has that, as well as the sea stuff. And with Titanic and Piranha, there's a bit of disaster movie DNA in this, at least in certain sequences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure, yeah. Especially the first half.
Yeah, when the rig's flooding or the crane's dropping and people are, running around trying to close hatches against incoming seawater. That's like those sequences are in Titanic also.
What a great set piece, by the way, when the crane is coming down.
Wonderful.
And they're all just holding their breath watching this damn cord coming towards them. I forgot how intense that was.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
I love that. It lands right in front of them and they all breathe a sigh of relief.
Yep.
Then it falls off the cliff and they realize they're attached to it. It's so good. It's such a terrific sequence. Like, this thing's full of great sequences. I'm a big fan of this movie too, Al. I think this one's great. Problematic, as I said, the wrong word, but
I would agree with you that there's standout sequences here, but overall they don't cohere for me entirely. It's not.
The Aliens is a little rough.
Yes, almost. It feels, at least I watched the theatrical this time. I watched the director's cut the first time I watched this movie, which was, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, and never moved to rewatch it. So this week I watched the theatrical cut, and yeah, I mean, it seemed crazy to me when I read about what was cut from the director's cut, like how much was taken away from the ending there. Like, how do you still have a movie here? And now I'm watching theatrical and going like, did we need the aliens at all even?
Oh, I was the exact. I hadn't seen the theatrical cut until last night, and I thought they butchered the ending.
Let's save that for the end, I think.
You're right.
Yeah.
Should we just give a brief synopsis just in case nobody has seen the movie?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess this one is one people might not have seen. You know.
Like, yeah, it is.
I mean, I don't know.
If a James Cameron movie can be obscure, this is.
And not
slightly of a Piranha 2, I suppose.
Okay. So we open in one of the best places a movie can possibly open, aboard a nuclear sub. And
what could go wrong?
Right. Well, something goes wrong. They have a mechanical malfunction, and this nuclear submarine is disabled, and it sinks into a deep sea trench.
A wonderful scene, by the way. An incredible opening. The alien thing that's outside that kind of surprises them and screws them up is creepy, and that whole thing is scary. You get to know enough of these crew that you're sad to see them die very horribly, very quick, and it is a horrifying scene of water just barely busting the door open and getting in, and it's so good, so good.
Oh man,
yeah. So then we cut to the movie proper, which is this deep sea oil drilling. I guess they call it the rig, but it's sort of like undersea
rig. Yeah,
yeah. It's a base at the bottom of the ocean, where Ed Harris's crew of, if you've seen Armageddon, he's the Bruce Willis equivalent here.
Michael Bay has seen The Abyss.
The Abyss, for sure.
I was really surprised how much this is explicitly Armageddon, actually.
Yeah, and then so his company, the oil company, ropes him into assisting with like the sort of rescue mission for this. Or salvage to go recover this nuclear sub because his people are already down there. There's a hurricane blowing in, obviously. You got to include that. And his estranged wife is brought in to supervise this rescue operation because she designed the whole undersea base. And she is, all the ancillary characters agree, the quote-unquote queen bitch of the universe. Which, yeah, from what you see on screen, I guess that's because she is kind of protective of her like $50 billion undersea technodrome that she built.
Hi, Gail Ann Hurd. How you doing?
Yeah. It must be weird to make a movie with your ex-wife while you're going through a divorce, especially when that movie is all about how your analog character is still in love with the ex-wife and wants to get back together with her.
Yeah, it is sort of the opposite of Temple of Doom in a way. You come away from the movie with a very, you would have never guessed that James Cameron was going through such a painful thing at that time.
Yeah, his wedding ring saves his life at one point.
Oh God, I love that so much. I love that little human moment of throwing away the wedding ring, and then a couple seconds later, the humiliating, like debasing. He's got to get his arm all blue to get it back. Like, who can't relate to that?
He has to fish it out of a chemical toilet,
right?
Yeah. And then his hand is stained blue from it for the rest of the movie.
It swings back around to save his life. I love that. That's such a great little gag.
It's such a there's so many well put together scenes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's weird. I mean, Cameron seems to burn through wives. I believe he's had 4. But he seems to be in good relations with all of them afterwards. Catherine Bigelow, Linda Hamilton. I mean, he continued to work with them after the divorce. He's been with Susie Amos now for, I don't know, since Titanic, I guess. And I guess she is more allowing of his going to the bottom of the ocean hobby, and then the rest. So it's worked out better. But yeah, it's
clearly they were all second wives because he was married to the sea from the start.
Yeah, Brandy, you're a fine girl.
Yeah,
I remember a Cameron quote that kind of sums this whole situation up. He said, "My big romantic failure in life is that I'm attracted to women who are much stronger people than I am, which kind of is a good summary of this whole story in a way.
It sounds patronizing to me.
A little bit, maybe. But...
I mean, I think it has a ring of sincerity to me because he makes so many movies about female protagonists that are stronger than their male love interests.
That's true.
When it comes down to it, like
that would explain
it doesn't strike me
as
as false.
His fetish. Yeah, that would.
I mean, yeah. If you want to be
an
worst
asshole
spin
about
on
it,
it,
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. I guess that's a weird thing, but he's appears to be better at the breakup than he is at the relationship. So
that seems spot on. Yeah. That seems to be about the shape of it.
There were worse. I guess there are worse flaws to have as a human than that.
Cameron,
such as if you're willing to drown your actors in an empty nuclear reactor that you're forcing them to spend their days at the bottom of for 6 months straight. Maybe that's a worse one. Anyway, but we should get back to all right. So the plot of the movie, we're only like 15 minutes into it, right? Because we just got down to the bottom of the ocean. The military also sent down a team of Navy SEALs led by Michael Biehn and his very untrustworthy mustache, who are going to help recover the nuclear bombs or whatever from the sub. They got to sort of pilot their underwater base over to the wreckage site and send down people in their, I don't know, what would you call these things? The
submersibles. Yeah.
Well, it's all submersed. But yeah, they're cars that they send out.
They're underwater cars, sure.
Yeah,
I think they call them submersibles. I think that is.
They constantly call them submersibles.
Okay, sorry. I just
The hell with that. They're cars.
They drive the submersibles out to the wreckage.
Right.
I love this very cool shot when they come upon the wreckage and see the giant propeller of the nuclear submarine and just the scaling of how big this thing is compared to their underwater cars.
Yeah, very creepy.
Very nicely done. Yeah.
This whole movie, the underwater photography in this movie, it's so good. It's outrageously good. It's certainly the best that had ever been captured. Maybe still the best because it's not
maybe
CG
I'm
reliant.
not sure. I'm not sure what else to
real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What else would you stack up against it? What's the big underwater movie since this?
Fuck. I mean, that's kind of the thing. I mean, not to spoil the end of this podcast, but no one's made a better underwater movie.
Right. Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. But I think there's a reason. It's that underwater's not a great place to make a movie.
No, anyway, no one else does it. Yeah.
Right. I think there are reasons for that, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. All right. So then they're down on the nuclear submarine with the Navy SEALs. Everybody's dead. They're trying to recover the warheads and confirm that nobody's still alive down there. And one of the Navy SEAls has an encounter with the mysterious glowing light creature.
One of the oil rig workers, actually.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
And he has a problem there, and they have to rush him back because he bangs up his oxygen tank, and I think it gives him too much oxygen, not too little. But anyway, he's now in a coma. Nobody really knows what's going on there. Now we're back on the oil rig, and the hurricane's blowing in there. This is where the water tentacle scene happens, correct?
Shortly after, there's a crane first, I believe,
this.
But then
the crane and the whole disaster.
They get disconnected from the top ground by the hurricane. Yeah.
Okay. Coffee takes up in what is? I'm trying to remember. Coffee takes off in the sub.
That's afterwards.
No,
right. What is Coffee's doing something that they don't like.
Okay. The Navy SEAls commandeer one of the underwater cars and go back to go harvest the warheads.
Yes.
Okay, right.
I'd
assume they had done that when they first went there. I guess not.
No, I think they had to go back for that because they had to rush out to save the guy. And meanwhile, the hurricane blows in overhead. The giant crane that connects them to the big ship up to top falls down. There's a nice intense action sequence there of the crane falling down. It's that's where the disaster movie stuff comes in. And basically now our heroes are trapped at the bottom of the ocean while the storm rages above them. There is a nuclear warhead on board. One of the Navy SEALs, played by Michael Biehn, and his mustache is succumbing to undersea madness.
Yeah.
And becoming increasingly erratic. And then the alien shows up, right?
Yeah, about that. Mm-hmm. The water tentacle.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. David, you're the fan here. Describe the water tentacle to me.
The water tentacle, the crew theorizes that it's sort of like a probe or a recon drone. What do they call it? The MAV equivalent.
Right.
But
They have their underwater drone that they that they pilot that they don't like ride in. It's not the car.
The water tentacle is the first time that it's more or less absolutely confirmed for the audience that these are clearly aliens, absolutely, and they apparently mean no harm, because the water tentacle is just poking around and checking things out, and they have this beautiful scene. This is what I noticed on this most recent watch through. Is that this movie? It's weird that I would almost describe it as Spielbergian.
I would too.
It's definitely got some close encounters to it.
Yeah.
Right. There's lots of awe and wonder and just this magical sort of Spielbergian sense of those qualities. And
just his setup and payoff stuff too is honestly very Spielberg in this.
Right. Yeah. The tentacle meets the main characters and starts mimicking their faces, and clearly, like, nobody at this point could dispute that this is something. It's no Russians. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
well, to be clear,
he sees it and immediately freaks out and attacks, and which is great.
Well, if you haven't seen it, it's not a tentacle like an octopus tentacle. It is
right.
It is a tendril of concentrated water that pops up and just like floats through the air and looks around.
Apparently, they wrote around this scene because they weren't sure if the effects were going to work. This was before T2 and the T1000, so I guess this was sort of a dry run for those effects.
This is one of those real early CGI creations, one of the first in movies. Kind of anything pre-Jurassic Park has some sort of designation than this. I think it was like there's a stained glass night in Young Sherlock Holmes, and then this, and that's the first two CGI things in movies, or close to it. It's a revolutionary leap forward, this one. This is one of the first times you can do something that is somewhat photorealistic on screen. You know, with something we know, water. Now, it's kind of appearing in a form that we wouldn't normally see it in, but
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not. We don't have a frame of reference really for what this would look like in full. In person,
which is why you have to do it this way, I suppose. It reminds me of the boss from Ocarina of Time in the Water Temple. It's a one of the hard ones. The Water Temple.
The Water Temple is hard to navigate generally. Yeah. If I could just find that son of a bitch, then that'd be fine. Anyway,
right.
All right. So they have this encounter and start theorizing that there is this, they call the NTIs, the non-terrestrial intelligence, because they're not extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
They are alien in that they are new to us, but they are Earth natives. Anyhow, they don't do much at this point. They just we have that water tunnel encounter, and then we go on to now. Michael Biehn is losing his shit, and there is like a second Cuban Missile Crisis brewing up topside that before they lost contact, because they, the military is concerned that this sub was lost because the Russians attacked it or whatever.
Right.
And so he wants to basically nuke the NTIs.
Yeah. So
I had to look this up. He has high pressure nervous syndrome. I'm not sure if it's the same thing as the bends. I think it might be, but
I think the bends is just a physical thing where like your brain will like
you get
pop
bubbles in
if you come up too soon.
Right, bubbles in the blood or something.
Yeah.
But
this is more like Steve Buscemi's Space Madness from Armageddon.
Right.
Very much. Yeah.
I looked it up, and it all the symptoms that I saw, that violent paranoia was definitely not one. So they took a little bit of liberties with this, but
no, I thought about this
Biehn
too.
does a wonderful job.
Yeah, I mean, this
playing
is
crazy.
He's good, and well, I thought about this too. I mean, so much of this movie, its analogs are not other undersea movies because those don't exist. So much, it feels like an outer space movie.
Yeah,
because that's what being at the bottom of the sea is like, at least in our current form of space exploration. And I was thinking about how like I have no idea if space madness is a real thing. I
doubt anyone
suspect
knows.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's certainly not as well documented as they would make it out in Armageddon. But maybe in this movie, high pressure, nervous, whatever. Maybe that's not a documented physical phenomenon either. But what a good dramatic device.
Oh yeah.
For undersea or deep space movies. This idea that just when you go out into this environment, 8% of people are going to absolutely lose their goddamn minds and start trying to kill everybody. And oh man, what a great thing to have.
It's a great device for justifiable tension, as opposed to so many movies where it's just like, oh, but I don't believe that this is happening. I don't believe people would make these choices. Here it makes sense.
Yeah, and Coffey's an asshole before that too.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good confluence of it's a good way to get where they're going. And I mean, honestly, I don't even need him to be crazy to believe he'd be a Cold Warrior asshole.
Right, you don't need it.
I don't need it.
Like,
but I like Michael Biehn's performance of it very much. So
any other movie wouldn't feel that you would need that justification. They just have him be this cartoonish buffoon, but when you add that in, it's an interesting, cool little detail that helps sell it.
I mean, it's basically Stephen Lang in Avatar is the
right,
this without the crazy,
right?
Yeah,
and that one's worse, I think.
Yeah,
because I think this it ends. Maybe tragic is too strong of a word, but a layer of sadness to it.
Did you not see the part where Stephen Lang jumps out of a exploding spaceship in a robot? Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's fine.
He's talking about worse.
It's not as good.
I saw all the parts of Avatar. I just couldn't tell you anything about them.
And then the robot has a giant machete for some reason. It's awesome.
If he had a mustache, maybe we could talk about this. But he doesn't. He doesn't. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. Bean is fun.
Anyway,
this is a fun Bean performance. It's neat to see him do this after his his supportive hero in Terminator and Aliens. This kind of fills out the triptych in a neat way, for a movie where everyone is talking about what a mean bitch Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is. He's the only one that that you really hold it against him when he's talking shit to her. He's nastier about it than everyone else, in an obvious way, right up front, and so it's very satisfying to see that he's like, oh, he's the one that loses it. Perfect. He's the most intense one. And Bean has a blast doing it. Just Bean.
I cut him a little bit of slack because of the high pressure, nervous, whatever the fuck, and just mainly because I have residual Michael Bean affection from the last two movies we watched. But but also just because, again, I think as a villain, having him be, a sad, more of a sad villain than an outright Stephen Lang style asshole is just more interesting to me. So I prefer to interpret it that way anyway, just for dramatic purposes.
Well, I mean, I was watching it this time thinking about, like, when does he actually cross the line here? And it's later than you'd think. Like, going to get the nukes makes sense in a way. Like, it's...
And his moment of snapping is completely justified. It's shortly after the water tentacle, and everyone's fawning over this. Oh my God, this is the first encounter with whatever.
It went right for the warhead, and they think it's cute.
Exactly. It went right for the warhead. I am justified in being weirded out by that.
Yeah.
And
he thinks it's probably a new, like, Soviet weapon, not a new form of intelligence. Honestly, probably a more reasonable interpretation.
Yeah.
Given my own, like, real life proclivities. But in any case, now he's going totally nuts. We're pulling guns on people. He wants to now send the robot
he wants to send their probe down to the NTIs with the nuke attached to it. Yeah.
He wants to duct tape a nuclear warhead to a probe and shoot it at the aliens, basically.
I love that.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous when you describe it, but it makes sense.
However, it is how we solved nearly every problem in every sci-fi movie of the 90s.
Exactly.
That's how
it was good enough for Independence Day.
He's trying to do an Independence Day. He's trying to save the world,
or an Armageddon, or a Deep Impact, or the Core.
The Avengers does it. That's the end of the Avengers. Yeah.
Or Sunshine. I love the Core. That the idea that
no one loves the Core.
We need. Well, no, I never seen the Core. I just love the concept that the Earth is broken and we have to nuke its heart
Is that the plot of that
like,
movie?
Yeah, like
Oh,
the nuclear bomb is like the
dig to
Earth's
center of the
defibrillator.
Earth, and we got that's exactly what I think. Yeah. It's that movie's like
that checks out.
a satire of disaster movies, but it's not. It's just bad.
There's just a vein of disaster movies I love where it's so like clearly it's just here are screenwriters who don't understand science, and so their best idea is always, well, what if nuclear bombs in like the middle of something?
Yeah.
Then that would work, right?
It's like Trump and the hurricane. Like just put a bomb in it.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if
Blow
that's
it up.
what led to him saying that was that he saw Armageddon.
It absolutely is.
Right?
I've seen many movies.
Yeah. Well, if
Where
we
this was
shoot
a
a
good
nuke in it.
idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course.
I think you're giving him too much credit. I think I've seen a movie where this worked.
Yeah.
I don't believe he watched Deep Impact. I think he fast forwarded through Armageddon.
Well, Deep
Anyway,
Impact is the one where they're just like, well, I guess we'll. Oh no, they do use the nuke in that. All right.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah,
it is both.
It's all. Right, okay.
We better roll over and die, and I guess we'll try the nuke thing. Getting back to the plot of The Abyss, right?
Yeah, this is where coffee
Yeah, he goes
takes
nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He goes nuts, and now we have to start doing things where we're swimming out of the outside of the underwater base.
I was not handling this. I don't know about you guys.
Oh,
I do not like this type of stuff.
it's so good. It's so
Right.
good. Swimming.
Do you guys
across
ever do the
ocean.
thing where
Oh.
you're sitting in the theater or you're watching a movie and you hold your breath along with the characters and you're like, well, I'm dead. Like 30
used to do
seconds
this.
into this scene, I ran out.
I used to do this till I realized how dumb it was. Like how like the
Right.
movies don't work that way. This is
Hmm.
But yes, if they want me to hold my breath longer than 30 seconds, I'm just going to die. So
I would not be very helpful in this scenario.
I remember being 10 years old and marveling at Star Trek 4. Like I know Captain Kirk's better than me, but he can't really do this. Like I went to the bathroom and came back, and he's still swimming around under there.
That is the thing.
Anyway.
That when you're a child, you can just be like, "Wow, he's amazing," instead of just well,
panicking.
They
at
didn't
everything
really.
you see.
They didn't really think that out. Okay, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. They do explain it right that like, well, they're already pressurized, so they can do it technically, and it's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
Yeah, they're
that
down there.
much colder than the rest of the water. Yeah, it's very upsetting though.
but that's where one of the things like that is one of the problems with doing underwater movies, I think, is it's really hard to dramatize how cold that water is. I mean, I guess it's also a space movie thing because it's hard to dramatize how when you were exposed to space briefly, like how freezing that is. It's like you could have people act like when they first touch the water, like ooh, brr, ah. But once they're down there for like 5 seconds, like
yeah, your body's doing things at that point, right? You're going
I would
into
actually
shock.
sort of disagree with that sentiment that it's hard to dramatize cold. It is. You're not wrong, but they do a wonderful job of dramatizing cold. About 5 minutes later in this movie,
right. It can be done. I'd say it's hard, is what I was saying.
Yeah.
Without like constantly, I don't know, derailing things or drawing extra attention to it by just having people stop and go, "Oh, burr, it's still cold." But one of the ways to do it, I guess, is to actually nearly drown or freeze your cast at the bottom of a nuclear reactor.
Does the trick? You get the footage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ed Harris makes it to the moon well.
Yes.
Yeah.
The moon well is a weird thing to describe to people who aren't versed in submarining, but
Yeah. Unlike us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen The Abyss many times, so I can
yes.
tell you about a moon well.
We are experts.
That's
And 15 years ago, I looked at the Wikipedia on this and realized that this is actually a thing that can exist. And like it's scientifically sound, but when you're under the water, that there's just this pool of water where you can just pop up, and now you're inside the thing. It's just like stepping in and out of a swimming pool.
Yep.
And somehow you can work the pressurization where that works. So Ed Harris pops out of this pool behind Michael Biehn, where Michael Bihn's duct taping the nuke to the remote device.
no. He's
out of it, man.
He is rolling chains through his hands and staring into water and just.
It's so great. Yeah. It's such a great mood. He's just sitting there. He's not doing anything constructive. He's just sitting there
on the edge of tears and just upset.
That is true.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised some of Michael Bihn's, underwater madness faces have not become memes. Because they are moods, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
So he tries to sneak up on him and take him out because Bean convinced the other SEALs to lock all the oil workers into a room and whatever. So they have a fight, and Bean kind of gets the better of him and escapes into the sub. The underwater car.
Yeah.
This is the lamest setup and payoff in the movie. Even though I like it, it is pretty lame. Where earlier the redneck guy goes, I used to be a badass. They call this right here. They call this the hammer. He's talking about his fist.
Love this.
And then
he
this. Shows up and he punches Bane into the next dimension. He punches him to another state.
I think this is great. I think this is if I were in the theater in 1989,
You'd stand up and clap and salute.
Cheer and salute. Yes.
Hell yeah.
I think this is wonderful. And I love the way it's set up. I love it because Catfish, the fat guy, he's not even that fat. The redneck guy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
the big guy.
Yeah, he comes off as a jackass in that earlier setup. He's the guy wearing a trucker cap, wearing a sleeveless mustard colored shirt. They're like, these Navy SEALs, they ain't shit, really. The truth is, and then his friend pours cereal down the back of his shirt. And he's like, they used to call this the hammer. And so that's setting up the character as a joke, but it is putting it in your head.
Right.
He believes his fist is very strong. And it is. I think that's
Turns
great.
out.
Yes, I think that's good. I love this performance too. We'll get to those guys, but this is a good.
I think there's a moment to talk about them coming up.
Okay.
But okay, so he saves Ed Harris from Michael Biehn, but Michael Biehn then escapes in the sub, and Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Yeah, it's
God,
a
I can never
challenge
say
every
that.
time. Yeah,
yeah. They chase him in the other underwater car.
Schwartz, this has to be your. It's an underwater car chase. The first one I can remember.
This is the only submersible fight I think I've ever seen, right? No one's ever done this.
I was thinking that. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
They're doing underwater bumper cars.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, and they can't do much. You would think that at least one of them would have a hook or a claw or something, but
they do have the claw. They're trying to grab the nuke.
Yeah.
The nuke.
I wish they were trying to grab each other with them,
They should have. Yeah. It should have been more of a aliens loader battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It could have been what was that? What was that show on Comedy Central back in the day?
BattleBots? Yes.
BattleBots. Yeah, that's what it was. One of them should have had a buzzsaw.
Yeah, a little buzzsaw comes out.
You could justify that as part of a mining submersible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could have used it to cut the cord before it dragged him off the cliff into the trench earlier.
The point is, this is great, and I'm shocked this is not in any other movie. But if you want to see submersibles have at it, then you have one option. It's the Abyss.
It's a pretty good choice too.
Well, so this is I guess now is the time to talk about why I don't think you see a lot of underwater movies, because doing action sequences underwater is very difficult.
Oh yeah.
It is not mankind's natural environment. So we cannot move. I guess we could move sort of gracefully down there, but not quickly. So especially when we're struggling with, say, another person or something, we are just sort of slowly flailing in a way that is not, I don't think, very viscerally satisfying to watch. We'd like to watch bodies in motion when it's James Bond doing parkour or whatever the fuck. People doing.
I will say that Coffee's demise is very satisfying. What a horrifying way to go.
I'd say at least it was quick. I was kind of relieved when.
Yeah.
So eventually he gets knocked over. His underwater car is disabled and knocked over the side of the cliff, the undersea cliff. So it's just sinking down into the trench. And as the pressure builds up, the glass on his windshield gives way to the pressure, and it just collapses in on itself.
Yeah,
it implodes.
Maybe this is a different movie. I remember his eyes started to bleed. Is that a different movie? A different movie does that?
It is a different movie.
Okay.
Maybe License to Kill, the James Bond. believe
I
that.
think it
I
might
don't
be one of the like Deep
Or
Star
the
6
Leviathan.
or one of those.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think it's Deep Star 6. I believe that's how Miguel Ferrer goes out in that film.
Oh,
What
okay.
a useless piece of information be rattling around in my head. Okay.
Well, thank you for putting it in my head.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
yeah. Like,
But
what else
I'm
am I
just
gonna
saying,
do with it?
personally, if I'm down there, sign me up for pressure breach and quick implosion over slowly sink into a lightless abyss and wait for my air to expire.
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
You know?
for sure.
Like, I would love to go to space at some point in my life, but also like,
Ooh, not me.
I want a cyanide pill for
Just in
Absolutely.
case.
if I get in like a George Clooney in Gravity situation or something where I'm just stuck out there and there's no coming back. Like, I want to be able to pull that plug quick rather than waiting for it. But that's me, you know. Anyhow, so now Ed Harris and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio are in their other underwater car that has had its own. They've been bashing into the other one, so it's now taken on water, and they can't make it back to the rig. He has got an underwater like pressure suit that he can wear, but there's only one of them, one suit and two of them. So
this was horrifying.
This is one of those
this is
sequences
horrible to watch. This was difficult.
It's amazing. It's like one of those like trolley problem kind of like.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you got a fox and a chicken in a bag of grain, and how do
they
you
determine
get it all
that they determine that the only hope for both of them to get out of this is she's got to drown. He has to bring her back, her body back to the base, and whip out the defibrillator and do the clear, boom, and 1, 2, 3, and revive her. Which apparently, because the water is so cold, she can last a while longer there before like full brain death.
It slows her blood flow and all that.
Right.
Which okay.
It sounds like it would maybe make sense. Who knows?
I mean, it's whatever. The upshot is we have to watch her drown, which is
my God.
in real time. It is brutal.
Any other movie would not execute this as well. Like that little moment when she's running out of space and this is the plan. She's wants to do this, but she's panicking. She's freaking out.
Yeah.
She's going, "Oh God, oh my God, I don't want to die." Those little
the last thing she says is "I'm scared," which is
I'm scared. Yeah, I don't. Please help me. I don't want to do this. Like James Cameron. Oh my goodness, crushed it.
Yeah,
it's a great scene. It is a powerful scene. The scene immediately after it is powerful. This is the heart of the film, really. This stuff.
It would have been really easy too, like to in line with the earlier characterization about her being queen bitch or whatever, blah blah blah, for her to, take on the drowning more aggressively or whatever, just like
stoically or
stoically.
Like that,
but man, it's not like it's
She's
not like we're
human
to think any,
being.
it's not like we're to think any less of her for being scared
Right.
in that. It's the most horrifying thing ever. Like drowning is a real like fear of mine. Like I would rather die in much more ostensibly painful ways than drowning. And there's an element of claustrophobia to it too, in that little enclosed space that's filling up with water. It's just like one of my worst nightmares. And I also sort of scream. I mean, I guess it is the right like dramatic thing to do, to where he has to look out the scuba faceplate and watch her drown like eye to eye.
Ooh.
But
what a shot,
man!
What a
you could be already swimming her back, man.
She has to drown first, though, right? Isn't that the whole point? Like,
but she could drown on the way. It's not any harder to drown out there.
You can drown to go.
Also, what's the worst could happen? She doesn't fully drown. Okay.
Now I'm just picturing me swimming with Swartz under my arm, and he's flailing, trying to get away.
That might have something to do with it. The flailing.
Yeah, maybe maybe that is the internal rationale.
This was a terrible idea. Why did we leave so soon?
Apparently, that's also
she really is like that. Is her? It's the dramatic version of just I immediately regret this decision.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much.
Apparently, that really is Ed Harris dragging Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio through the water.
Yeah, there's in the doc. There's a scene where you can see Cameron directing her, and apparently she has an earpiece in somehow. I don't know how that worked, but he's saying, limp. "Look, I need you to."
I'm sorry.
Pretty much. I need you to twist
stiffer,
like
stiffer.
He's very specific. I need you to turn your head like awkwardly 90 degrees
okay.
so that we can see you on camera
that makes
because your
sense.
hair was covering it that time. And he goes, all right, do it again.
Jesus.
She gives a thumbs up and they go do it again.
All right. So he gets her back into the base, right? And
Yep.
and she is dead as a doornail. She is blue and stiff and her eyes are wide open. And all they bring in the stuff. They do the 1, 2, 3 clear. They're doing CPR trying to revive her, and it is not working.
Yeah.
And this is a rough scene. This is where I think like the supporting cast here really shines, like makes this sequence work.
Everyone makes this sequence work. Everyone.
Yeah.
Gold star Ed Harris.
Yeah.
Unbelievable performance.
Arguably Oscar worthy in this film, I think, because of this run of
I don't
scenes.
think that's
a
stretch.
It's among the best things he's ever done, for sure. You know, if he weren't such a storied actor with such a long career, it would definitely be the best thing. Like he's outrageous in these scenes. It's
well, he's also this is not what I consider his wheelhouse.
No.
This big displays of emotion. That's not like Ed Harris is a great actor.
Understated.
He's great for how he understates, how he avoids that.
And he does that the rest of this movie, and that's why it works so good in this scene. Of course, he can do this if needed, but he saves it. Yeah.
I before we talk any more about this scene, I just want to put a special attention to this because this is what's her name? Mastriano?
Mary Elizabeth
Mastrantonio.
Okay, Master Antonio. This resuscitation scene. If you've heard some of the more complaints about this movie, this is the scene that did it. Apparently, during the resuscitation scene, she was soaking wet, topless, because they need skin to skin so her tits are out, which is and she's repeatedly being slapped and pounded on the chest, and the camera ran out of film during the scene, and that was the moment that broke something in her mind after months of this shoot, where she stood up and she said, "We are not animals. You can't do this," and she stormed off set. Who can blame her?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
especially after months of a hard shoot, like fully understandable that you would.
I cannot blame her. However, this is the one sequence in the movie where I'm like, okay, this is where all that 1970s bullshit I was talking before, like. But this sequence is so good
but it shows up on film.
I guess,
so it's like,
yeah.
I'm so sorry you went through that, but man, is it good?
It's an incredible scene. Apparently, her not being there is why so much of it is reverse shot of Ed Harris, which is also why you get such an incredible Ed Harris performance, because it's all on him for a good chunk of it.
But like that saying, that's the one scene where, like, man, it does show up here, like that.
Yeah,
all that hardship. And it's not just her or just Ed Harris. It's everybody there. I think it's really like adding to that. But we also, we barely lead here, is that they finally convince him like this is not working, and like she's gone, man. And he like breaks down, has a little cry, and then he jumps back up and says, "No, God damn it, no, I'm not done."
How James Cameron of an action can you have? Like, no, I will defy death.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that.
We're speaking of like parallels here.
And screams in her face and calls her a bitch and says, "You never."
I like that when that happens. It initially feels like it's almost like, oh, cringe. It's he's lost it. It's over, and it takes you a while to get back to. I mean, until she starts breathing, you think he's just having an emotional breakdown, and that's the end of it. It's a very persuasive, compelling fake death. Maybe one of the best ever, honestly.
Oh yeah, it's convincing.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So here's my one thing here that I thought this whole time, like I did not think this is how this thing was going to go, because he does. Sorry, his second time around when he shakes everybody off and goes back for more like pounding on her chest and everything, he does succeed in reviving her eventually, and she's now alive, and it's very. I'm being glib about it, but it's very emotionally affecting. But what I was thinking the whole time is, oh, she's really dead, but I'm just waiting for the water tentacle to pop up and like revive her magically somehow. That's where I thought this was going.
Right.
I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm
very glad it didn't happen.
Yeah.
This is way better than that. But that's what I thought.
Yeah. It's so good. This is the this 20-minute segment here. I don't know. I mean, I could extend that even to this submersible fight. Call it that whole part of the film is sort of like the excellent Cameron at his peak part of The Abyss, probably. There's other moments that are
Yeah.
as good, but that's like the heart of it. That's when it's
from
as good as
when
anything
Coffee
he's done.
turns on them
Yeah.
to her being revived. That is the peak of this movie, undeniably, I think.
Yeah.
That's where it stands like sort of toe to toe with other Cameron movies.
Yeah.
My thing is now we have another 45 minutes of this movie.
Well, if it's a director's cut, yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. And so now the big threat is that the nuke got dropped. It's sitting somewhere halfway down the trench on a little ledge, but it's going to go off, and that's a problem. I guess it's going to hurt the NTIs, or maybe it'll just alarm the Soviets, and that would be a bad thing to happen in the middle of.
Wouldn't it kill them? I mean, it wouldn't.
It probably
Yeah,
would.
yeah. So it'll kill them too. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean that on the global scale, that's a pretty small price
Yes.
to pay if that's all
Right.
that comes of this.
Right.
But sure, that matters to us. Anyway, the thing is though, now this movie I feel like has peaked emotionally and
Right.
like viscerally.
I
That we went
disagree.
Mm.
Continue, but I disagree.
So now, like the thing is that they have to set up Ed Harris with his deep sea diving suit to do the deepest dive that anybody has ever done, so we can go down and disarm this bomb.
Did we skipped over the pink fluid, didn't we?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, this is the pink fluid right here.
Yeah.
This is the
Well, there's an earlier scene with the rat.
Sure, it's established in the first act that
Yeah,
there's this fluid that they fill up the suit with, that it gets into your lungs, and you don't breathe air, you breathe this hyper oxygenated fluid. It is a real scientific thing that apparently actually works. Although I don't think they've done a ton of testing on human subjects.
Important note here: the rat, that was all real. The fluid is real; it works, and the rat was actually breathing fluid. That was completely 100% real.
Multiple rats.
Yeah,
Yes,
another one of those
to,
5,
things.
I think.
Yeah.
According to trivia I read, they only had to cut away to avoid showing the rats shitting themselves in panic as the fluid initially entered their lungs.
Well,
but
I mean, another cruelty thing you probably couldn't get away with anymore.
no.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't physically harm them, apparently. It's just, but it's mentally scarring. It's scarring.
it's terrifying.
If you say so, sure. All right.
Like I said, apparently, I don't know what. Anyway, so now we're going down in this trench. Ed Harris is going down like 2 miles deep.
The pressure,
twice as deep as anybody's ever gone.
Unbelievable pressure.
Way farther than Coffee went. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got his little. He can only communicate by sort of like tapping into a keypad that they have taped to his wrist.
Right.
And he's getting a little loopier as he goes down. He gets down there. There's just general tension things like, oh, something went wrong here.
His flashlight crushes from the pressure. The MAV he's using to guide him explodes from the pressure.
So they lose the video thing, and they can only see his tappings, which are misspelled because he's struggling to keep his mind together.
I like all this, man. I think this is all real good stuff. This is great.
It's not that it's bad stuff. It's fine. Mm-hmm. It's just that there is, to me, a real dip off of going from we are at the bottom of the sea and in a very hostile environment, and there's nuclear bombs, and a Navy SEAL is actively trying to kill us. To now our antagonist is an inanimate object lying on a ledge that's farther down undersea. Okay, that's harder to get to, but it's a bit less visceral. It's a bit less active and exciting in my book. And
it's more existential for sure. It's less action movie, more end of 2001 a little bit, where this is going. And I like that. I mean, it is, that the point of comparison I was going to make down there, that this is what we're finally going to figure this out and what's going on with these guys. We don't. The point
the point of comparison I was going to draw was Wages of Fear, which is, I think, what a lot of like good outer space movies do, is just this, that Wages of Fear doesn't need to have an active saboteur trying to blow up our protagonists, because just the task they're doing is so dangerous in and of itself that the obstacles can be inanimate, and that's still incredibly tense. And this movie hits that at times, but I feel like having the active, human antagonist for a big chunk of the movie, and then having that go away, it deflates somewhat for me in terms of intensity.
Right.
I can understand that. I don't know. This is one of my. This was my first Cameron because it was PG-13, and it was a big one for me. And this is the sequence that always stuck with me. This is terrifying stuff. The sort of the dark isolation of the abyss itself. Just the way it's shot, the fact that he has like, and this is mind blowing from a filmmaking standpoint, like the actual physical production of this, that you have Ed Harris underwater wearing a tank that is also full of water. So you know, like that seems incredibly dangerous, you know, since he's not actually using this rebreather technology, he's just
right.
Has a tank of water on top of his underwater face. Yeah,
real life behind the scenes stuff. Ed Harris is just sitting there in a scuba dome helmet that is filled with actual water, pretending that it's breathable when it's not, and he's just holding his breath while he's acting in this thing.
And he's also already like 30 feet underwater. It's crazy. And then you have all these little moments like, you got to cut the wires on the bomb. Cut the blue one with a white stripe, not the red one with the yellow stripe, and they look exactly the same in the light.
Yeah, it's so far underwater that you shines the light on them, and all you can see is light and dark. That it doesn't. They don't look any different.
So good.
He doesn't like tell them this is a problem, but you can see him just mentally flipping a coin and going, "I guess this one," and he guesses right. So he does disarm the bomb and send a last message to his wife that says he loves her, which is very honestly from watching this movie 12 or 15 years ago to now, I remembered like two things, which was the drowning and resuscitation scene and love you, wife.
Yeah.
That's the part that stuck with
me. Yeah.
So that's, Cameron, he does, for as much as like his signature is all of the insane technical stuff, he hits those big emotional moments like better than most blockbuster filmmakers.
It's kind of his bread and butter, and it's not really, credited. I mean, I don't know. I think after Titanic, people kind of understood that.
Yeah,
that was his thing.
But then people also like to the point where they like kind of slag on him for schmaltziness after that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a little curious to see how Titanic works for me now, but yes.
When we get to Avatar, it feels a little more cynical to me, or it's paint by numbers there, those characters and whatnot. But
the emotional life of Avatar is maybe the problem with Avatar.
Avatar wishes that it had this romance at the center of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm almost ready to say this is the best romance in Cameron, which is not a small thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have to rewatch
I'd say that easily. No offense to Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese, but they're not this.
No, I like that romance very much, though. It's really good. But I mean, obviously, the thing to talk about there is Jack and Rose, and we'll have to.
Obviously, we are a group of straight men of a certain age, so
exactly.
We're blasting right past
the movie where all of the heroes call the woman a bitch. That's what we like. Oh boy,
and punch her in the heart.
Violently abuse her.
That's how much he loves her. He has to punch her in the heart. Yeah.
Speaking of schmaltzy, we should get into the. I was checking the differences between the theatrical and the directors. By far, the biggest difference is the ending.
Of course,
and
which we're finally there.
Yeah, I'll just quickly set it up here for those who don't know. Ed Harris disarms the bomb. He can't make it back because he's got 5 minutes of air, and it took him half an hour to get down there.
Describe the end of the theatrical one first.
God, I was so mad. I was livid last night when I watched this because so Ed Harris meets the aliens. They find him and they save him and they bring him on to this amazing ship.
They bring him to their underwater city.
Right, their underwater city. And,
where they can kind of control the water so they can create an air bubble for him and sort of be like, hey, buddy, what's up?
Right. They can communicate with him.
We've been watching you. We like your style. I think you got a dynamite sound.
Exactly.
And anyway, they take him to the top of the ocean, and everybody's like, and Chris Elliott's there.
Yep. Right.
Because in addition to, I said this movie's got like all the Cameron movies DNA, and it's also got a touch of Cabin Boy in it because it's got Chris Elliott at sea.
Well, it's at this point where the theatrical cut goes horribly wrong. Immediately, as soon as his helmet's off, he says one thing to the aliens, and then they point behind him and they go, "Love you, wife." Always knew this was a one-way trip. It's terrible. I hate it. You need it as cheesy as it is, as schmaltzy as it is, as ridiculous in some ways as it is, you need the tidal waves and you need the long montage of how horrible we are as humans. You need the Russian US tension throughout the movie. You need all of that build up before always knew this was a one-way ticket, love you wife. Because if you don't have that stuff, it doesn't hit as hard. It doesn't work as well, at least for me.
It is schmaltzy, but it is obviously necessary. Like it is obviously that is the story here. And
it's the story. It's the whole deal.
And like you can say what you want about the story. They don't replace it with anything in the director's cut. It is just like, hey, there's aliens. What do you think about that?
Well, what a thing.
Okay. So you didn't properly explain what the director's cut does.
Right.
Sorry. So, go ahead.
No, you watched it more recently than I did, I think. So
okay,
it's
well,
hard to find now.
The director's cut, the basic gist of it is it just adds a couple more character beats throughout the bulk of the film. It adds more of the Russia-U.S. tension. You see more of the looming tension of war due to the situation with the submarine happening on the surface, which will ultimately through line through the movie towards this ending where the aliens pass judgment on us. They see that we're a violent, horrible species and we abuse ourselves and we're using nuclear bombs and we're terrible and we're horrible. And Ed Harris is watching all this footage that aliens are showing him on the screen behind him of humanity's miseries, and he can't really say anything to deny it. What's he going to say? He's like, yeah, we can be pretty bad, I suppose. And then the aliens do not kill everyone everywhere with giant tidal waves. They stop the tidal waves midair. It's beautiful.
That's the thing. They're going to destroy the Earth. Like
they're going to destroy the Earth.
The literal end of the world is happening up topside.
They're raising tidal waves all over the world, and they stop them midair. These 1,000-foot tall tidal waves.
They have absolute mastery of water. That's the thing. They can make it do whatever. So they make these giant tsunamis just stop and hover over the coasts of every coast in the world.
And then they call the tsunamis off. They call the tidal waves off, and Ed Harris looks at them and he goes, "Why did you could have done it. You could have killed us all. Why didn't you?" And as soon as he asks that question, he turns around and he sees the display of what he said to his wife. That lands so much better in the director's cut.
Yeah, of course it does. It's something. It's everything that has been built up.
The whole movie builds up to it, as we just discussed. All this cut stuff, all this cut material builds up to this plot beat.
And the thing about it is, like, Cameron could have kept this in the film, I feel like. And the thing to cut would have been the drowning and resuscitation, which doesn't actually no. Narratively.
Right.
That doesn't actually add to the story.
He knew he was not getting rid of that scene come hell or high water.
I guess so, and it was the right choice. Oddly enough, even though it breaks the film to not include the tidal wave stuff. That is clearly what it's about, but he made that decision to be like, you know what? We got to have this stuff instead. I don't care if the aliens don't make sense anymore. The emotional core of these characters is the most important thing. And that is a hell of a calculation to make.
If I was him, I'd be devastated.
Yeah, for sure. But the theatrical is kind of broken in this way just because, obviously the alien stuff plays so much better when you know what the intention behind it was. But I can't argue with the logic at the same time if you had to make the cut. I mean, I guess obviously the director's cut is just the way to go. As difficult as it is to find to this day, it's only available on DVD right now, I believe. If you want to spend like $30 online.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll defend the theatrical cut. Okay. I will say that you're right. There is a better, I guess, emotional weight behind the director's cut climax there, and arguably it connects, the sort of bigger global stakes, the emotional stakes better. But I think while the theatrical cut works less well emotionally, it makes for a better sci-fi movie to my mind, in that it leaves us. It doesn't reveal too much about the aliens or their motivation,
right?
And it gives us enough emotional through line of we've been watching everything you're doing, and Ed Harris, we're impressed with what you did, and now we're going to reveal ourselves to you, and not making it all about we don't like how you did how you handled this nuclear stuff. And I mean, it makes sense, but it makes a little too much sense. It makes them a little less alien. It makes them just like some, I don't know, annoyed RAs in the dorm that humanity's been living in. And I like that the theatrical leaves us still not really knowing what the aliens' deal is. And I
that is the inherent promise of this entire premise is what's the aliens' deal, and it is just sort of punted in the theatrical cut.
So here's the thing, maybe why this movie is not a favorite of mine, or that I like less than you guys. I think I generally am not big on friendly alien movies,
and at least, but the director's cut has the less friendly ones. It's the angry RA aliens.
Yeah, they're pissed,
but they're still big softies in the end.
Yeah,
they're ultimately helping more than anything. Like I tend to like. I mean, look, there are some great friendly alien movies, but there are movies that I'm not drawn to watch a second time. Whether it's this or Close Encounters or Arrival.
Okay.
It just there's something deflating about it, because these movies, they're sort of built as thrillers, and going into it knowing that not only like just knowing how this scene is going to end, like who's going to make it out, but like that this frightening and mysterious entity that the characters are all scared of doesn't actually mean them any harm at any point. It kind of takes a step away from me. There's a correlator to this in horror movies too, that there's the friendly ghost movie.
Yeah, okay.
That
I understand what you mean viscerally when you say that. Okay.
Yeah. I remember sitting in the theater watching Crimson Peak, the Guillermo del Toro movie, and watching
the ghosts aren't even the bad guys. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's by Crimson Peak. I'm like, yeah, it's a Guillermo del Toro movie. Of course, the ghosts aren't the bad guys. I know this now. Right, this is the fourth time I've seen this version. So the first time there's a ghost scene in that, like that's a really well put together sequence. But I'm also very aware that like that ghost didn't actually do anything threatening. They just
they're so
had a
awesome
scary
looking.
Look. They were lit in a very scary way and showed up like, but also like clearly that meant the heroine no harm. And I love.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So the section of this movie that works the best for me is that middle section where everything is working against them, where the basic physics of being under the sea are working against them, and that the Navy SEALs have a different agenda than Ed Harris and our heroes do, is working against them. And one of the Navy SEAls is actively going crazy and,
they lost
shooting
communication.
At them.
Yeah.
Like it's everything's against them. And then knowing that they have this big supernatural entity on their side, like,
well, you don't know that at the time. I guess you kind of, the pseudopod thing is friendly-ish, I guess, but
they definitely for a long time, they present as potentially dangerous.
Right. And I prefer when aliens, where the aliens are actively and actually dangerous. And I think that's when Cameron's really good at everything going wrong at once and stacking the odds. And even beat aliens, that's Terminator, that's Titanic, even that.
Yes,
so, Titanic's really great at all the physical. Just we can't touch this water because it's too freezing. But also there are human antagonists actively working against us at the same time. That tension works for, an hour and a half straight stretch of that movie.
Right.
But that stuff all is in service, ultimately, of this sort of larger, the aliens judging us and whether we're ready for the next step of galactic evolution. Like all the war stuff, all the... everything with coffee. It is a philosophical argument in some ways, even as it's not presented that way, at least as the aliens are watching it. And it also feels like that is, clearly what it's all been set up to establish. And I will even quibble with the way it plays out in the director's cut. I don't think it's flawlessly executed by any means, but it's so clearly what the intention of all this stuff was, what it was all building to. I would rather have that than sort of the half measure, I feel, which is the end of the theatrical cut. I mean, you're saying that's when the tension lets off. That's when the movie starts to be a little a little less intense, a little less exciting, is after Kaffee is dealt with, and it's just become sort of an existential thing.
Well, it's a passive threat. It's an inanimate object that they have to go
right
work on.
But when there's global stakes, then it kind of takes on that sci-fi kind of idea-based narrative sheen. Like it has the feel of kind of like the original Terminator. Of you picked up a Robert Heinlein book for $2.99, and it just has this great big thematic idea at the end, and that's sort of what is driving it. There's a dime store sci-fi novel quality to a lot of Cameron's stuff, and he just does it like it's a AAA blockbuster idea, and it is a proven formula for me, and that is the end of this film, at least for me. The director's cut is maybe the strongest evocation of that vibe and that sort of narrative construct. So I don't know. It's another reason I like this movie so much.
I will say that in other Cameron movies, the Terminator, Aliens in particular, the action climax and the emotional climax and the thematic climax are all come to a head together much better. Whereas here they're sort of spaced out. This movie is just sort of weirdly, like, lumpily put together in terms of how it moves from one of those things to another thing. That we have the action climax dealing with coffee, and the emotional climax of the resuscitation scene, and then the thematic climax of the tidal waves and the alien stuff. And maybe this is more me being basic or whatever, but
no,
give me a big climatic action scene that brings it all together and then gets me the fuck out of that theater. Whereas coming back to rewatch this, it's like, I don't know what the reason why I didn't do it for 10 years was. I was like, I think I'm not going to want to watch the last 45 minutes, like knowing where it's going.
Wow. Okay. I still have very fond, even the theatrical version of the end of this movie. I still think it's tense. I still think it's interesting, visually very exciting. The aliens are an interesting puzzle, at least, and their weird boat city is just so weird. It's just such a strange thing to see, and even I even don't mind, like, wow, we didn't decompress. We should be dead. They must have done something to us. All that stuff.
They must have done some magic.
Yeah. Even that,
I love how that's just Cameron unable to help himself. Like he certainly knows intellectually that he could just not say anything about that and nobody would give a shit. But he would.
Yeah.
Master diver James Cameron. Are you kidding me?
He needs to address the bends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all good. It's all interesting. I agree that in either cut, it's not like a perfect finale. It's not super polished. It's taken on a lot. It's a lot to kind of present to you at the end. Global water apocalypse. It's a big one. Mm-hmm.
It is a great, big, messy passion project from James Cameron. Definitely. It doesn't have that sort of one of the more prevalent criticisms of Avatar is that it's sort of this sanded down for general audiences type of thing. This is not. This feels a bit more, I don't know, personal, I guess is the word.
Very personal.
Certainly is.
This is the most Cameron, it feels like. This is everything he wants, This is him playing the least to the audience, I would say.
This is the ultimate one for me kind of movie.
Yeah, and, obviously he has cinematic tendencies. Like he knows how to make a movie play for an audience, and that's not just going to, abandon him because he wants to do a submersible film. But this is the one where he doesn't seem to give a shit about whether you like it or not. And
one example of that I read anyway was that his initial story for this, the concept for it, was built around a team of scientists that were at an undersea research station that were going down, doing these expeditions into this deep sea trench and started disappearing because they were getting scooped up by the MTIs or whatever. And that was sort of the initial story idea. And then he determined that, but general audiences won't relate to egghead scientists. So let's do the blue collar oil worker thing.
That's the greatest popular filmmaker of all time. Instinct kicking in and going,
exactly.
No, let's make a change.
Mm-hmm. And it works.
And it was a good change.
I love my oil workers.
Yeah, probably
movies.
was.
Yeah, they're great. Great group of them. Interesting that this does not have like a lot of like famous people on the sidelines like Aliens does. Like there's no Bill
think part of it's
Paxton's in this.
that nobody worked with James Cameron ever again after this. I think a lot of them just retired outright.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, I don't know what Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio did. Oh, no, she did Robin Hood post
Right, yeah,
after this.
that's about it, though.
Should we quickly, at the end here, does anybody have anything to say about the torture, the after effects, the shooting of the movie, that sort of thing?
I mean,
yeah, we covered it right up top, I think.
Right.
I mean, they had a bad time. Ed Harris refuses to speak about this movie. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio refuses to speak about this movie. Michael Biehn says he had a blast.
Yeah, Michael Bihn's the only one who was like, "Yeah, it was fun."
Although he was in like every Cameron movie up to this, and then not after this. So,
right.
I don't know if we read anything into that.
He should bring Biehn back. Biehn could have
I
been
guess
the bad guy.
he was in a deleted scene in T2.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
There is one Cameron story I didn't know behind the scenes that I just quickly want to go over. So Cameron would film at the bottom of the tank most of the time, which meant he had to decompress. The actors did not. They were generally about 30 feet down, 30 meters down, something like that. So they didn't have to go through decompression, but he did every day.
Yes.
So he's at the bottom of the tank setting up a shot, and he gets too immersed in his work, and he runs out of air. He tries the radio for help, but and I don't understand how this happens. Apparently, the radio operator had hearing issues from a diving bell eardrum accident. So he couldn't hear him calling for help. Okay, I don't know why that guy that got that job, but anyway, so Cameron scrambles to go up to get air, and one of the safety divers sees him going for air, so the safety diver comes over, gives him his respirator. Cameron goes to take a blast of air, but the respirator is broken. He's just getting a blast of water, right? So now Cameron's really panicking. He's got to get to the top, and the safety diver sees him doing this and grabs him to stop him because he thinks he's panicking. He's like, hold on, calm down. And Cameron's like, you son of a, let me go. So finally, James Cameron had to punch this guy in the face to get free, to get to the surface. Yeah. And by the time he got to the surface, he was almost unconscious. He had to be carried out of the pool. He fired the radio operator and the safety diver, and then he was back to work that same day like nothing happened.
It is
just another day on the abyss, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, again, if this movie was Apocalypse Now, I'd be like, okay, that's, the crazy lengths you have to go to reach these heights. I don't know. This is like maybe the 5th best Cameron movie. I don't know.
I mean, he's just got such a high bar, he's
a perfectionist.
There's some incredible films on this resume. This would be the best film most people made.
Yeah.
This is
I agree with that.
It's really not a bad movie.
Yeah, and it's a blast. Rewatching again, I was reminded how into this I was. I don't know where this will end up in a final ranking, but it's going to be probably higher than I thought beforehand. It's super good. We'll see how the rest goes, but this is really really cool movie. And David's story there would have been a great place to end this, but no, I refuse. Before I sign out here, I have to say the guy who plays Catfish, character actor Leo Burmester, originated the role of Thénardier in Les Miserables on Broadway. How weird is that? It's the guy who sings Master of the House. He's a big Broadway actor. That's why he's not in movies.
Who is this? This is the redneck?
Yeah, Cat.
Uh-huh. What?
They used to call this the Hammer.
He's not a real redneck. He's a fake.
He's a big fake redneck, yeah.
Oh, you've ruined the movie for me now.
No, he's just a good actor.
I mean, okay, is he I don't know, this is something that's going to make it into the final cut here. Is he a better fake redneck than Jeanette Goldstein is a fake butch Latina?
Oh my god. Hey, Vasquez is
it's a tough one, actually.
Cinematic royalty.
Exactly. So Catfish, not so much.
I will admit, one of the few moments I didn't love in this rewatch is when they're all reacting to the water tentacle, and it comes to that guy, and they throw a pillow at him, and he goes, and he does that cartoonish double take. I expected him to go, whoo!
Yeah, he's
It
like
was a little
groping
much.
around trying to find a flask so he can like look at it
like
closely
that.
and be
He grabs
like,
a potted plant to fight the tentacle.
Yeah, he should have been drinking something and then saw the water tentacle and then like thrown the liquor
looked
in
at his bottle.
He looks at the booze.
I don't know.
And then you cut to like his golden retriever pet and a slide whistle. Get that in there too. Get everything.
He's great. I love him. He's a really fun character in the Abyss. Like all of them. Like Hippie.
I'm
He's
so
great
glad.
too, right?
It is.
Hippie's nice too.
It's one of my favorite tropes in movies when you get to love all these characters and you're enjoying spending time with them, and at the end, miserable things happen, and you're like, "Oh, great, a bittersweet ending." I hate bittersweet endings, and it's like, "Nope, happy ending. Everything's great."
See, maybe this is the divide.
I knew that you were going to hate this, but I don't care.
This is the divide between us on this one.
Movie, so...
I like that too. That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
None of them die. None of the ones you care. Even one night makes it. One night makes it just fine. And you're worried about her. You're worried her submersible is going to get cut off and fall off into a pit somewhere. Doesn't happen. She's fine. All the
a few of them die in the initial like disaster where they get cut off. A couple of the people do.
Oh, but no names though. Who cares?
The ones we don't know at all.
They're red shirts for sure.
Shirts.
Even Jammer makes it. Jammer, Okay.
Maybe that's part of it too for me though. That it's friendly aliens and
it's too nice. It's too Spielberg. Yeah.
You're not wrong there. It is that is a Spielberg thing rather than a Cameron thing. Cameron kills everyone more often than not.
Well, he kills half of people, which I think is a good number. You know,
we needed the aliens to grab somebody and wishbone them in half at one point in a horrible.
Maybe one of the bad seals. Sure, yeah.
One of the other seals could have had a heroic death, like that. Yeah, he helped Coffee, and that was bad, but he did something redemptive.
Yeah, near the end, like everyone's like, "Hey, we're all friends now." I'm like, wasn't one of you fuckers the one with the Uzi who was threatening to kill everybody?
That was our guy. The oil workers were firing the Uzi into the water, which apparently was real bullets, live fire.
Yeah, Cameron was like, "There's no other plausible way to get squibs in water," so we shot a machine gun into incredibly dangerous.
He's not wrong.
I mean, nobody was down there that they were shooting at, but they were just firing a live machine gun
that we know of. Who knows?
Yeah, Cameron was probably down there in a scuba suit.
There's some grip down there smoking a cigar, trying to set something up.
All right, we've got on long enough.
This is Plenty on the Abyss. Okay. Hey, thank you, David. Thank you for joining us for the Cameron-A-Rama and the Abyss.
Thank you very much for having me.
One of the more interesting films in this resume, I think. I had a blast revisiting this and talking about it with you guys. So thanks for listening as well. Oh, you know what we should start doing? Asking people to rate and review.
Rate and review. That would be great.
Right? We've never done that before.
Review.
That would be helpful.
What's the matter with you? Yeah. This is a Freeman podcast.
We have
give it a thumbs up.
We've been doing this for like 2 years, and we've remembered to do that once.
Yeah, right. Review it on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, all those things. Tell your friends.
It's so awkward. Like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah. Look, I know reviewing is a big task. Honestly, type one sentence. It doesn't matter what it says. But rating is super easy, it turns out. I learned after like 10 years of listening to podcasts, I realized, I just press a button and it's a number of stars and that's it. I press one button. So now I just started reviewing or rating the podcast I listen to. So
please
do
type
that for us.
That this movie should have had evil, aggressive aliens.
Yeah,
you would like that very much.
Yeah, you can mention that in review. That's fine.
The review just says +1 evil aliens, +1 nice aliens. That's all you got to put.
That's fun, right? That creates intrigue. Okay, we've gone on long enough. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back for more Cameron. Terminator 2's next. That one's huge.
That's a good one.
Fun. Okay. All right. Thanks for listening.